Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you may be around the world. Welcome to our global webinar, SDG Data Alliance Live. This is going to be a webinar on data foundations for the Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for SIDS. Whilst we've had a bit of a slight delay in getting started, we're going to have an exciting agenda with us today with a great lineup of contributors. My name's Greg Scott. I'm the Executive Director of the SDG Data Alliance within Public Foundation, and the webinar that we're bringing to you today is with our partners, the SIDS Centre of Excellence, and in particular its Global Data Hub, the Government of Antigua and Barbuda, and AOSIS, the Alliance of Small Island States. Obviously, our webinar today is going to concentrate on data and small island countries, small island developing states, or what we call SIDS. I will moderate this webinar with you today, and I'd just like to let you know that we are recording this webinar, and the main and primary reason for doing so is that many of our colleagues around the world, particularly in the Pacific and the Pacific Islands, this is 1 and 2 a.m. in the morning for them. So we're recording the webinar and we will post it on our website so that we can have this as a record for others to watch down the track in the future. I'd also just like to let you know that if you have any questions during the webinar, please do post them in the chat and we will take note of those and list them, and we will open up for two Q&A sessions. One during the webinar itself, we will take a pause for a few minutes, and again towards the end. So with that, without further ado, what I'd like to do is welcome to make some opening comments and remarks Public Foundation's chairman, Sergio Cordova, just to give us some insights, particularly as to why this webinar we're doing today is critical in the journey that we're taking with small island developing states. So Sergio, over to you. Thank you.
There we go. Technological difficulties. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Excellencies, colleagues, partners, and friends, thank you for being with us. To our co-host, the SIDS Center of Excellence in ESRI, thank you for helping us move from concept to capability. As Greg mentioned, the Antigua Barbuda Agenda for SIDS, the ABAS, is a 10-year execution framework. It calls for mechanisms that are resilient prosperity operational, especially in geographies where distance, scale, and exposure compound risk. The Antigua Barbuda Agenda for SIDS is not asking for additional declarations. It is asking for systems that make commitments measurable and accountable. For small island development states, data is not a reporting requirement. It is sovereign infrastructure. Remoteness often fragments institutions, data sets, and services. When data remains siloed, islands pay a premium in disaster response, public health, education, and access to finance. When data is integrated into a shared national architecture, governments reduce risk, coordinate more effectively, and negotiate from evidence rather than assumption. Let's consider this a practical example. When a storm warning is issued, governments must quickly determine which clinics are exposed, which roads are often likely to be cut off, where vulnerable houses are concentrated, where supplies should be staged before condition deteriorates. Without an integrated system, agencies reconcile spreadsheets across ministries, and that's not real time. With a national data hub dashboard and a mapped portfolio, ministries operate from a shared real-time picture. That shift improves targeting, reduces blind spots, and creates a cleaner line of sight from decision to delivery. This is exactly and precisely the role of the SIDS Global Data Hub. It connects national data sets into secure interoperable architecture that supports the ABAS implementation, SDG tracking, and policy design, which is a huge piece of evolution for the small islands. It strengthens their sovereign data ownership while enabling collaboration across ministries, regions, and partners. The SIDS Center of Excellence brings these elements together as an operational platform. It integrates the Global Data Hub, technology, and innovation support, which is key to evolution, and an island investment basically integrates and strengthens the policy and financing around environment for resilience. And this work is already underway. An initial cohort of 10 SIDS country data hubs is being deployed across the Caribbean, Pacific, and AIS regions. Systems are being built, teams are being trained, map portfolios are being developed to support real-time decision-making. This is how a global agenda becomes a national capability. Let me close with 3 invitations. For governments, designate national focal points and embed governance structures that make data usable, secure, and trusted across ministries. This is not simply a technology initiative. It is national infrastructure. Second, to institutional and development partners, align technical assistance and standards around what countries are building here, so we can reduce duplication and accelerate interoperability. And third, to our technical partners, from Esri to Fugro and others, continue to make the tools deployable, affordable, and locally owned. Capacity transfer is the benchmark of success. If we execute together, we could turn remoteness into connected reach. And if we turn we could turn resilient prosperity into measurable progress. Thank you very much. Back to you, Greg, and thank you everyone for attending our webinar.
Thank you. Thanks, Sergio. Much appreciated. Really like those 3 key invitations as takeaways as well. And colleagues out there in the webinar, Sergio did mention some of the technical capabilities such as data hubs and map portfolios. As we get further and further into the webinar, we will start demonstrating some of those capabilities. But for the moment, it gives me great pleasure to actually invite Mrs. Andrina Antil de Souza, who is the communications advisor for the SIDS Center of Excellence, or what we fondly call the COE, to give us more contextual information on the SIDS COE. Now, before doing that, we're just going to play a short video that will introduce us to the SIDS Center of Excellence prior to Andrina's remarks on more detail in the implementation of this great initiative under the government of Antigua and Barbuda. So to the video, as we say.
We are many islands united across oceans by common experiences and shared challenges. The impact of climate change has touched each of us. Our islands are now left vulnerable, reeling from rising debt, data paucity, and an unforgiving global financial system. From the promise of the Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for SIDS emerges the SIDS Center of Excellence. SIDS have now come together to create something historic, a solution-driven initiative that, at its very core, is responsive to our realities. The SIDS Center of Excellence will transition promises to action, grounded on 4 pillars: data, innovation, investment, and debt sustainability. The center will make resilient prosperity for all SIDS a reality. SIDS will own data, attract investment, and build resilience, turning shared vulnerabilities into collective strength. The SIDS Center of Excellence is no longer an idea. It is reality. It is the future, and it is ours.
Andrina, over to you to tell us more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Greg. I always feel so excited after watching that video, and I'm sure that our attendees now want to know more about the SIDS Center of Excellence. So good morning, Excellencies. colleagues, and attendees. My name is Andrena Athil D'Souza. I'm the Communications Advisor at the SIDS Center of Excellence. And it is truly a privilege to join you today to introduce the SIDS Center of Excellence and also to situate it within the broader vision of the Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for SIDS, or the ABAS. Now, we know that coming out of the 4th International Conference on SIDS, one thing was clear, and that was that although our countries face common and compounding vulnerabilities, from climate shocks to debt pressures and constrained fiscal space, one thing is certain, and it is that we also possess extraordinary capacity. And the ABAS captures that capacity in a forward-looking framework. What it does is it provides us with a strategic roadmap, one that speaks to resilience building, sustainable finance, data systems, technology, and institutional strengthening. But as we all know, a roadmap alone does not move the vehicle forward. And ambition without delivery mechanisms risks remaining just aspiration. And that is precisely why the SIDS Center of Excellence was established. Now, the SIDS Center of Excellence, headquartered here in Antigua and Barbuda, it's not just a think tank, and it's not merely a coordinating office. It's an operational institution, one designed explicitly to support the implementation of the ABAS. Now, its purpose is to bring together data, technology, institutional capacity, and partnerships within a coherent delivery framework that translates strategic priorities into practical country-level action. And the center itself is structured around 4 interconnected pillars, and that is the SIDS Global Data Hub, the Innovation and Technology Mechanism, the Island Investment Forum, and the Debt Sustainability Support Service. Now, each of these pillars I will briefly give an overview on, and each of them addresses a critical dimension of the ABAS. But the thing is, it's that they're not standalone initiatives. They function as part of an integrated system, an ecosystem, one reinforcing the other, and then simultaneously strengthening national capacity across SIDS. So let's first take a look at the Global Data Hub. Now, I'm sure that you all know that across our island, policymakers often confront the same constraint. We all know what needs to be done, whether it is protecting our coastlines, modernizing infrastructure, reforming fiscal frameworks, or accessing climate finance. But the thing is that we don't always have the timely, high-resolution, data-ready required to guide those choices. And data paucity is a real issue, and it's limiting evidence-based policy making. Also, inconsistent data sets weaken our ability to negotiate financing or demonstrate risk profiles to investors and to climate funds. So the SIDS Global Data Hub was created to address those challenges. Now, it's not simply a repository or a website. It is a secure, interoperable data ecosystem designed specifically for SIDS realities. And it integrates geospatial technologies, Earth observation data, modeling tools, AI-enabled analytics, dashboards, and visualization platforms into a unified architecture, all of which we'll learn about today. And through this system, governments can visualize development trends, monitor public investments, assess vulnerabilities, track ABAS implementation, and align their national priorities with global reporting frameworks. Now, importantly, the hub is built around the principle of data sovereignty. So countries will retain full ownership and control of their data. The hub does not extract or centralize data without authorization. And operationally, the Global Data Hub is supported by 3 reinforcing functions: a knowledge management engine, a data integration lab, and a training center that builds national capacity to manage and sustain these systems over time. And there is a long-term vision. And that long-term vision extends even beyond just a global institution. It includes a network of SIDS country data hubs, which are modernized national systems linked to the global architecture. And that ensures that SIDS realities shape global reporting rather than the other way around. And so now that we've looked at the SIDS Global Data Hub, let me now turn to the Innovation and Technology Mechanism, or the ITM. So SIDS are often adopters of innovative technologies. We look at renewable energy systems to digital public services, yet access to emerging technologies, technical expertise, and scalable pilots can be uneven. And so the ITM will be a structured platform to deploy, validate, and scale high-impact privately funded innovations across multiple SIDS. At its core, the ITM serves as a long-term institutional framework. It is designed to ensure that technologies are systematically vetted, responsibly deployed, and rigorously assessed before they are being scaled. And through this mechanism, emerging technologies and financial infrastructure are integrated into a unified platform. And in doing so, it offers a global model for how SIDS can access cutting-edge solutions that were previously unattainable. And several priority sectors have already been identified. These include disaster resilience technologies, renewable energy systems, health technologies, logistics and trade optimization tools, and other resilience enhancing innovations. And each of these areas reflects both immediate national needs and long-term development priorities. Now, and throughout this entire process, sovereign autonomy is preserved. All decisions from technology selection to partnership terms remain under full national control. Data ownership remains with the country, and the ITM does not override national priorities. Instead, it supports them. Now, we have turned to the third component, which is the Island Investment Forum. And that is going to address another persistent challenge that we see throughout SIDS, and that is translating priorities into bankable opportunities. Now, SIDS frequently possess strong national plans and clear development strategies. However, transforming those strategies into investment-ready pipelines that attract concessional finance, a blended finance, or private capital can be very complex. So the Island Investment Forum creates a platform where governments, development banks, climate funds, philanthropic actors, and private investors can engage around credible data-informed projects. And so by leveraging the analytics generated through the Global Data Hub and aligning with national policy frameworks, the forum strengthens transparency, comparability, and investor confidence. And it ensures that financing conversations are anchored in evidence and aligned with a BAS priority. So again, you see the ecosystem is at work. Now, finally, let us turn to the Debt Sustainability Support Service. And this will respond to one of the most pressing structural constraints facing many SIDS, high and often unsustainable debt burdens. And so we know that rebuilding after disasters, investing in resilience, and servicing debt simultaneously place enormous strain on national budgets. And so the Debt Support Service provides technical assistance, analytical tools, and strategic advisory support to help countries assess debt sustainability, explore innovative financing instruments, and engage more effectively in restructuring or negotiating processes. So very crucially, it does not operate in isolation. Debt sustainability analysis is strengthened by high quality data. Financing negotiations are supported by credible investment pipelines, and resilience building reduces long-term fiscal risk. So each pillar consistently reinforces the other. And so taken together, really you can see that these four components form a coherent operational framework for a BAS implementation. The SIDS Center of Excellence is designed really to reduce fragmentation, enhance coordination, and elevate SIDS leadership. It ensures that our countries are not navigating complex data systems, technology markets, financial landscapes, and debt negotiations alone, but rather, and more importantly, are supported by a unified SIDS-driven institution. So the BAS has given us an ambitious vision. And here at the SIDS Center of Excellence, we are proud to say that the center provides the delivery architecture to make that vision real, and real it shall be. So I would like to close by thanking you for your time and your investment into the SIDS Center of Excellence. This is a very exciting moment for SIDS. And at this juncture, I would like to invite you to visit our website for more comprehensive insights into the center's mandate, and that is www.sidscenterofexcellence.org. Excellencies, colleagues, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Andrina, and thank you for introducing us all to the SIDS Center of Excellence, in particular the four pillars for the COE. And really, as Andrina had mentioned, it's very much about data, innovation, investment, and debt sustainability. And this idea of a coordinated ecosystem. And by that, we mean data informs innovation. Innovation strengthens bankable investments. Investment supports resilience, and debt sustainability creates fiscal space for long-term transformation. Thank you very much, Andrina, and please do look at the website, which we will have a link to at the end of our presentation today, and I will refer to it in a little bit in just a couple of minutes. Now we've just got a very short closing video that we're going to just show you as well that's really useful for social media. Thank you. Once again, thanks so much, Andrina. And you can see that often with communication, particularly with decision makers, it's very, very important to have the right communications tools and graphics and visuals and in this case also a number of animations. So now we're going to do a bit of a transition and get into a bit more detail. So Sergio and Andrina have given us some of the high level reasoning behind the ABAS, the Antigua Barbuda Agenda for SIDS. Through that, the establishment of the SIDS Center of Excellence and its four key pillars. And now I'm going to spend a few moments to provide you with more information as to what the SIDS Global Data Hub looks like, why we're doing it, but also the context of why the SDG Data Alliance and Public Foundation joined this journey, in fact, in September 2003. Firstly, who are we? Who is the SDG Data Alliance? We were established in 2021. We're a multi-stakeholder partnership and we comprise a number of institutions from around the world, the private sector, international foundations, the UN itself, UN organizations, and also, importantly, governments, local and national governments. One of the key missions and visions for the Data Alliance was quite simple: to bring geographic information systems, or GIS, technology and capabilities to developing countries. Originally, we started in African and Latin America countries and 2 small island states. And it was with an ambition to accelerate achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. But that actually expanded out to the small island developing states and to support them in the implementation of the ABAS. So how did we do that? At SIDS 4, the 4th International Conference on Small Island Developing States, which was convened in Antigua and Barbuda in St. John's, where the new centre will be established in May 2024. And for that conference, we took an opportunity with a side event to demonstrate and publish a prototype SIDS Global Data Hub, because at the time there was consultation and part of the outcome ambition was to have a centre of excellence that would also have a global data hub. So what we did was we developed a prototype, and that was really about an integrated data process. And through that, If we can just go back one slide for a sec, folks. Thank you. And through that, one of our key objectives was to demonstrate with live data, with maps and applications, to show global leaders that whilst there is data paucity, it does exist. It just means we don't necessarily know where it is. That it can be brought together and it can be integrated. It can address real problems, as Sergio mentioned in his example in the opening, and it can be visualized, it can be communicated, and it can be shared and available to users. And that's really the main ambition of why we started this journey on the SIDS Global Data Hub. So now to the next slide, what does that look like? Today, we've gone to that next generation. And as Adrina mentioned, the Global Data Hub is part of the SIDS COE. It is establishing a repository of comprehensive data. It's about strengthening national data systems, but also being able to use technologies and capabilities, including geospatial enablers and statistics and environment and education and other data, to visualize, to share, to look at interlinkages, and to track progress. But more importantly, to enable countries, to enable SIDS to have the available data to make better and more informed decisions for not only investing in resilience, but also inclusive socioeconomic development. And since that journey in 2023, the Data Alliance and Public Foundation and our partners has stood up to lead the initial development of the Global Data Hub as this, as Andrina calls it, integrated data ecosystem. So to the next slide, what we can talk a little bit about and demonstrate today with you is the SIDS Global Data Hub, but also country data hubs and map portfolio. So I just want to give a brief overview of these before my team from Esri provides more context and actually does a live demonstration. Some key points. We're about integrating from a global to a local level. In other words, an integrated system. So we have a global data hub sitting in St. John's that is a federated system. But what we're also developing is SIDS country data hubs. And we've started on the first 10 country hubs as a cohort to prove out this concept. And within each of those country data hubs, which we're initially deploying right now virtually, so online, it will have modular data and technology bundles, which you will see, but it will also be leveraging cloud-based web services. It will have the appropriate security around it, sovereignty of data, curation, real-time applications, etc. But it's really about how we tailor these country hubs to the national needs and to development agendas. So we're deploying these now virtually, and then we will then deploy them live within countries, and we've started to do that through a regionalized approach. So training and onboarding through the 3 regions of SIDS, the Caribbean, Pacific, and the African Indian Ocean SID regions as well. So these are the SIDS country data hubs, but they go one more level down again. If we go to the next slide, is country map portfolios. What these are is a series of individual collections of country data that's compiled into specific themes across our development pillars. As we know, when we think about development, it has 3 pillars: social, economic, and environment. And so we're leveraging 9 specific themes within the map portfolios as part of the SIDS Country Data Hub service. And you can see a small example of that on the right-hand side. But importantly, this is just the starting point. So what we will demonstrate today is very much the beginning. It is not the end, because the end is about small island states themselves taking on responsibilities and building out their own national and local data. What we're doing is we're providing the capabilities. We're providing the structure, we're providing the form and architecture so that they then build upon that in alignment with their needs and their circumstances. So with this, and as we see today when we go through this presentation in just a minute or two, not only will the global data hub have access to global to local data, the small island states themselves will also have that direct access, but not only to the data, but also to the templates and models that we talk about. And beyond that, creating their own, what we term as maps, applications, dashboards, stories, etc. So how we use and leverage some of that technology. So with that, I'll just go to the next slide and just give you some examples of where we can enter into the SIDS Global Data Hub as a first point of entry. The first is through the SIDS Center of Excellence as well. So in there on the four pillars is the Global Data Hub. Whilst that link is not connected yet, we will have a linkage directly into the technical component of the Global Data Hub through this page. The second one will actually be through if we go to the next slide, the next one will actually be through the SDG Data Alliance's main page, what's known as sdg.org, that we established quite a number of years ago. And you can see there in the bottom left, the SIDS Global Data Hub, and it creates that linkage into the Global Data Hub. Now, both of these pages, if we go to the next page, both of these pages take us in to the prototype that we have now developed as our next version for a Global Data Hub today. And I won't go into that in detail just in terms of time at the moment. I was going to show that website, but you can see that. But what I will do now is invite my Esri colleagues, Valerie and Mackenzie, to give you more information and more detail on what the Global Data Hub looks like, what the SIDS data hubs look like within countries, and also the map portfolios. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Oh, I forgot the Q&A session. See, this is why I'm a little bit behind. We did have an opportunity, if folks had any questions, to see whether we could have any Q&A, but we don't have that, I don't think, at the moment. We haven't got any questions. I'm just checking with the team. No questions. Okay. No questions. That's great. We're going to catch up a bit of time. Now let's go to Stephen, have you got your hand up? Stephen Keppel?
Yes, Greg. There are two questions in the Q&A, and I'll just read them out if you can hear me. One says, when are you scaling out to all countries instead of 10? And the second was, is it possible to engage for providing data?
Great questions. So we are scaling out. The plan is at the moment we're doing the first initial cohort of small island states. So four countries in the Pacific. So those being Tonga, Fiji, Palau, and I'm going mind blank. It's what happens when you've got a big audience. Tuvalu, the world's smallest small island state. I should have thought about that. Third smallest country in the world, Tuvalu. In the Caribbean region, Antigua and Barbuda, Grenada, and St. Lucia. And then in the African Indian Ocean, the Maldives, Seychelles, and Mauritius. So those are the 10 we're starting with. Once we have got that 10 cohort established, we will then begin on the next cohort. So that will not be until next year at the earliest. We want to get all the principles and the balance of this right first. So don't rush, take it easy. But the idea is to have across the next couple of years, all small island states into that cohort and engaged. And as you could imagine, that gets simpler and simpler as we get further down into this process. And the second answer is yes, simply yes. By all means, this is really an inclusive process. And if there are contributors of data and capability out there, we'd very, very much welcome a conversation on doing that. So thank you. And thanks for those two questions, Stephen. Very valuable. So
Just
now, oh, yes.
just one other one that came in as you were speaking, that I think is relevant. It just says, as an island state from the Indian Ocean, the Comoros Islands, how could we engage with the center?
I think I even know who that's coming from. Well, no, we're happy to do that. The center has really just launched the website and begun developing its own, I guess, footstep in the world. And there will be a process for that, and we even have on our website to do that. But Andrina, unless you've got any other comments you might want to add. But really, it's about just building up some of that momentum while we can over this next year or so. But certainly welcome any engagement. Andrina, any further comments you might have?
Hi, Greg. Thanks so much. And thank you so much for that question. We all, of course, welcome engagement from all SIDS. And if you want to engage with the center, now that we have our website up and running, I think we have a tab that is engagement pathways. And so you can connect with us via that mechanism, and then we can start the conversation from there. So definitely just trying to ensure that we create that environment to be able to engage with anyone who wants to move forward in that way. So.
Thank you so much. That's it for the moment, Stephen.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Now, I'm hoping as I make this introduction with Valerie and Mackenzie that they are able to share their screens, because that's going to be incredibly important for us. So Valerie is a solutions engineer with Esri, particularly in the UN and global organizations. And Mackenzie O'Brien, is the technical consultant at Esri. So Valerie and Mackenzie form a core team within Esri, one of the the biggest global GIS solutions and software providers. Esri has contributed their capabilities, technology, software support to the SDG Data Alliance since it was originally established, a kind donation by Jack and Laura Dangermond. And we've had a great team working on this effort over the last 3 to 4 years, and particularly over the last 6 months, and how we develop out some of these capabilities. And I'm going to hand over to Valerie and Mackenzie to run you through some pretty exciting content that will give you a bit of a glimpse into some of the capabilities that we're exploring for the SIDS Global Data Hub. So Valerie and Mackenzie, over to you both. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Greg. It's so wonderful to be here with you all. I'm assuming that you can all see my screen okay, and that you'll interrupt me if you can't. But that was such a wonderful introduction, and it was so great to hear all of this context put together. As Greg said, this has been a long time coming. So yeah, we just want to take a little bit of time now to show you some kind of real life demos of what this actually looks like, from the SIDS Global Data Hub to independent country data hubs and map portfolios, as well as what's possible and what's to come in the future with AI and analytics, and actually using this data to answer questions that you all need answered. And so for starters, what we're looking at here is probably something that you recognize from Greg's slide, which is the SIDS Global Data Hub. The goal for this particular website is to be kind of that centralized location that is easy to access to get to more understanding, whether that's the overarching data library that is this global data sets, or being able to kind of understand and learn more about these data hub concepts as a whole, and even access those specific SIDS data hub and map portfolios. So we keep throwing around data hub and this word hub. I think that it's interesting because I do think that more and more, especially as kind of cloud and websites and making sure that we're centralizing data and all of that becomes more and more common globally, hub can be this kind of confusing word But really all we mean is that it is a website that is an easy location to access data and insights, whether that's data and insights that you've retrieved from partners, or whether that's data and insights from your own data within your countries. And then even that, taking it one step further, what we've seen, of course, globally is sometimes there are these data silos where different organizations and even different ministries within the same governmental entity have a difficult time figuring out the best way to share their data with each other. And so a big part of this is to break down those silos. So what we're looking at here again is the SIDS Global Data Hub, which explains a little bit of what we've already heard this morning, or afternoon or evening, depending upon where you are, but of kind of the purpose of the data hubs themselves. Of course, we have kind of some of this global information and data that already exists. For example, there's a lot of data out there that is publicly available for ocean health. So being able to track those with dashboards, being able to identify information like climate impacts and tracking that over time, identifying existing temperatures as well as anomalies that exist globally throughout the climate and specifically in our oceans, which I know impact the SIDS with a lot of impact. IMF has an application called Port Watch, which allows us to publicly see different trade routes and information to be able to bring all that data together. WFP bringing together data and publishing it in these public-facing dashboards for global hunger and fatality rates with conflict and interacting with that, and food need and vegetation deficits and agricultural impacts overall. So all this to be said that there's so much data out there already that can really be brought into each of your countries to be able to then combine that with the data that you already have to be able to gather more important insights. So this is just kind of the homepage to identify some of those pieces to kind of conceptualize it a little bit more. I also want to walk through briefly the data hub concept as a whole. If this is something that you're completely new to, data hubs or even geospatial information of how do we bring that spatial data and have it actually help us? Do we even need spatial data? I know that many people, when they meet, the first question is, where are you from? And a lot of you, that's very, very core to who you are, is where are you from? What island are you from? What different impacts are very, very prevalent in your life? And so geospatial information is at the core of that, and being able to take all of those different pieces from all of these different areas that I've already mentioned, trade, climate impacts, well-being, and being able to answer questions that are actually very, very pressing. And so if you have more questions about this, you can explore a little bit more of what is GIS. But I want to talk a little bit about kind of that hub concept. And so it is first and foremost a connected data ecosystem. This can be within your organization and just private data that maybe doesn't need to be shared out, or this can be shared out with community leaders and residents and other organizations like NGOs or other governmental entities. The SIDS Global Data Hub then is to have a place for this to all be centralized, to then be able to access those country data hubs, right? And so here's that system of systems diagram. And this is the goal, right? Is to be able to have that easy interaction between these data providers, national statistics offices, these giant NGOs like IMF, World Bank, being able to pull that data in. And then, of course, the centralized core of this, which is having those country data hubs and those map portfolios, and then in the future, those dashboards and analytics to be able to make all of this more accessible. So with that, I'm going to actually move over into the specific SIDS data hubs. Like Greg mentioned, is an initiative of the initial 10. We currently have 2 country data hub prototypes. We're going to talk a little bit about those today. They're currently very much under development. So these are currently, if you come to the sids.sdg.org, you'll notice if you click these links, it's going to be behind a login. That is not an error. That is just because these are in their very initial stages. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Mackenzie, who's going to show us a little bit more of the country data hubs themselves.
All right, thank you so much, Valerie. Hopefully everyone is able to see my screen. Again, interrupt me if you're having any issues with that, but all right, so we again have a bit of a work in progress here, as Valerie mentioned, the Fiji Country Data Hub, which is our sort of template prototype that we'll be expanding on for a number of other countries going forward, hopefully including some of the countries that y'all represent out there in the audience. But this is intended to act as a sort of one-stop shop, both for citizens and decision makers. So anyone who's interested in using data to guide decision-making, increase transparency within their country, or simply just learn a little bit more about their community. So as we scroll down, just an overview of what the site is, some different partners that the different countries will work with, and just a quick guide here to what the SIDS Center of Excellence is. From there, we can then jump into the open data, and we're able to explore some different data sets. A lot of these are globally available to countries throughout the globe, but hopefully as we engage with our different partners across countries, we'll be able to add local data sets as well. But if users are interested in coming in and creating a map of their own, it's as easy as coming down, picking a data set that they're interested in. So for example, if I'm interested in creating a map surrounding fishing, I can just go ahead and hit these 3 buttons here, click Open in Map Viewer. And then this will allow me to have the beginnings of a map where I can then add different data sets to my liking. And then from there, I can either have this map as a standalone, or I can bring it into other applications where I can use it to do analysis, present key metrics, or create a story that I can then share with my colleagues and fellow citizens. However, for those who are less familiar with working with GIS data, would be interested in seeing some sort of pre-baked applications and using products that have already been created. We have what Greg mentioned earlier. We have these SIDS map portfolios. So you'll see those 10 countries that Greg mentioned earlier. Again, hoping to expand those going forward. In keeping with our theme of Fiji, we'll jump into the Fiji map portfolio here. So as you can see, we've got these 9 different themes, each of that which have a story with different maps and different data sets within them. I'll jump into the Fiji communities and cities map here. And so Fiji has very kindly provided us with some data sets that have been published by the government. So in this orange outline here, this is a data set provided by Esri's Living Atlas, which is sort of a composite of different data sets that have been marked as authoritative and that are publicly accessible to anyone with an ArcGIS Online account. But Fiji, again, has also kindly provided us with some outlines of the villages and town boundaries, which are represented by blue and yellow symbology on the map, respectively. So I also have then over here sort of a narrative aspect to this story, where I can kind of explain how this data is relevant to implementing the SDGs and ABIS goals. And And then scrolling down here, this is where I am able to then zoom into particular areas of interest. So we've highlighted just a few cities and villages. So if I zoom into Nandi, one of the bigger cities in Fiji, I can then have an overview of different buildings within the city center. So looking over here, I can then get an idea of what sort of buildings are in the city center of Nandi, and have sort of an understanding of the different functions that are going on here. And just to contrast, I will then zoom to Matusa, which is a smaller village, to sort of highlight some of the data gaps that we are facing and hope to work with all of you out in the audience to sort of remedy. As you can see in Matusa, we're able to see outlines that there are, in fact, buildings here, but they don't have sort of that same color coding. So we don't really know necessarily what is going on in those buildings. It's sort of a mystery. So that's something we're hoping to remedy and work together to kind of get a better understanding and have that same data equality that is in those larger cities. So next I will jump over to the transport networks map. So here again, we have a combination of data that is coming from the Living Atlas, which is represented by this global ship density map, which are these blue dots you see sort of highlighting where it's more likely to see ships around Fiji versus less likely, as well as these airport icons representing, of course, where airports are within the island chains. Then as I zoom in, again, the government of Fiji has kindly provided us with some mini bus routes represented by these purple lines. And as I zoom in further, I'm also able to see bus routes represented in orange, as well as mail carrier routes represented in this light blue. And then finally, as I zoom in even more, I'm then able to see a layer representing all of the roads within the country as well. Also to highlight some more of the really wonderful biodiversity and conservation data that we have available within the Living Atlas, jumping over to this natural resources and land management map. We have some data surrounding species richness. So essentially what this map is representing is highlighting areas where you're more likely to see a wide variety of different species as compared to less species. That doesn't necessarily mean they don't have any species, it's just less compared to the rest of the surrounding area. So areas with brighter and larger circles tend to have a greater what we call species richness, and smaller and darker circles tend to have observed less species richness. You'll also notice that some of these areas around some of these other islands aren't represented with those circles. That doesn't mean we don't have any species richness there, it just means we don't have any data. So this is particularly helpful when it comes to guiding conservation efforts and deciding which areas of land may need to be prioritized more so for conservation and species preservation efforts. And then finally, I'll jump down to a forest loss map, and this highlights where areas of deforestation have occurred and which ones are more recent versus which have happened a bit longer ago. So the brighter areas, the orange and yellow dots, represent more recent deforestation, and the darker purple and pink dots represent areas that have been deforested longer ago. We'll send the links to these maps in the chat, so if you'd like to explore any of these countries, you're welcome to. But I'm also going to jump over to the Panama map portfolio. So this is another really great example, although not a SIDS nation, of some areas where the Panamanian government, as well as a number of NGOs and some of our partners down at Esri Panama, have published a number of really wonderful data sets. So hopefully we can get all of the map portfolios at some point to having the same sort of data built out as Panama. And I'll jump into that same cities and communities map that I did within Fiji. So here we're seeing that same layer where it has the world administrative divisions, which are the highest level of administrative breakdown in Panama. But then I can also view district boundaries, which are the next level in, and then a smaller one, sort of equivalent to townships in many countries, called corregimientos in Panama. And then I'm also able to view areas that are known as indigenous territories within Panama as well. And then finally, I'll also jump over to the physical infrastructure map. So here I'm able to see the global internet submarine cables. This is again a global data set, kind of highlighting where those cables come into land within the country and grant internet access to the citizens. But I'm also able to see a number of different aspects of physical infrastructure published by the Panamanian government. So I can view health institutions throughout the country, water treatment plants in the country, landfills, and then education centers. And you'll see over here, because there are so many education centers, we chose to use what we like to call clustering to sort of declutter the map. So if I'm interested in a particular area, I can click on it, choose zoom to, and this will bring me into a specific area of interest. And from here, I can then go ahead and click on a particular area of interest and see that this is a primary school, the district and the corregimiento it's located within. If I'm interested in a particular city as well, I can zoom to that particular location, whether it be Panama City, David, or Colón, and see all the key pieces of infrastructure that are located within that particular city. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Valerie to talk a little bit about some other applications that we've worked on creating.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mackenzie. So yeah, what we've just gone over is kind of the goal for each of the country data hubs as well as the map portfolios themselves. I wanted to dive into what this would look like to take it kind of a few steps further. This is all still with ArcGIS, which what that means, I think most importantly, is no code, right? So this is all what I'm about to show is achievable. We never wanted to show anything that is some crazy development cycle or anything like that. We wanted to make sure that everything within these country data hubs is achievable for the countries and ministries in which they'd be most useful to. So what we're looking at here is an example of another country data hub for Antigua and Barbuda. And we have the map portfolios available here, so I could click into those. They'll look they're very similar to what Mackenzie just showed us. Excuse me. But they'll also be able to have more data and more applications and visualizations and stories as needed. So what we have here is a little bit of a deeper dive into some of those data sets that we were looking at. Mackenzie was showing a lot of those different kind of vessel tracking and things like that. That could be vessels like commercial vessels, but that could also be things like tourism. And so here is actually just a deeper dive into a dashboard showing overall tourism and trends. You'll notice, of course, we've talked about geospatial a lot. We've talked about maps a lot. Sometimes we just need dashboards with graphs to be able to share this information and add to the data that we can see on that map. Again, like I mentioned, trade. So we can actually explore and dive deeper into local trade and maritime trends through PortWatch. And so this is being able to pull in that data for a specific country. So specifically here, we're going to look at the Port of St. John's in Antigua and Barbuda. And then taking that additional information, like what Mackenzie was looking at, and being able to maybe dive deeper, make a couple of different more specific maps and applications. So here we're looking at infrastructure. We can toggle back and forth between kind of a more traditional map and imagery. And using local data, be able to identify information like those schools, medical facility, law enforcement facilities, and harbors. But then those are still just points on a map. So we want to be able to take that further and learn more. So we can, of course, look at things like housing developments, but we can also perform analysis on these. So for example, what we're looking at here is the law enforcement drive times. So that's taking those original points that we were looking at and instead using an analysis tool called drive time analysis and being able to identify any areas across the island that are maybe beyond a certain coverage area to make sure that law enforcement can get there in time. So this then really takes those points and that really valuable data and instantly turns it into insight. Those are pretty traditional dashboards and maps and analysis, but I do want to take you into what it would look like to bring in AI. I know that this is a very common topic, and I would say that the most concerning part about AI right now is the ability to hallucinate, right? To be able to bring in information that is not applicable to your data, and one step further, to actually risk your data because your data can then get pushed out to the world or sold to the highest bidder. And so we want to make sure that that's not the case. And so what we've created is the ability to actually bring AI into your data where it's only looking at your data. It's not going to bring in information from outside. So here I've actually taken data from the Tonga 2021 census and I've brought it into a map. I'll zoom in a little bit here to be able to visualize that data. Now, this is the same problem with a map, right? We can only necessarily look at one data element at a time. Maybe we can look at some comparisons or perform some analysis, but maybe we want to actually interrogate this data because it has a lot more information. I've put some sample prompts here, but I'm just going to paste in another prompt, which is what percentage of households in Tonga have internet access and which type of connection is most common. So not only am I interrogating my data spatially, but I'm also asking it questions for it to draw relationships between multiple of the data sets within what I've brought to the table. This is going to think, come up with a search plan, and access my data. While that's thinking, I'm actually going to show you a little bit behind the scenes of what this looks like to show you, I know with AI right now, there's so much in the black box. And so I want to show you that it's kind of doesn't have to be that. What we want to make sure, of course, at the very core of everything we're talking about is data. It's your data. It's being able to bring your data to a safe environment, still be the owner of that data, and then be able to ask questions of it. So here, what we're looking at is data that has really strong metadata. So this is kind of the one step further is that there's data and then there's data that is really good and clean and that the AI can interact with. And so as we're entering into this age of artificial intelligence, we want to make sure that our data is that clean AI-ready data. And so what that means is being able to really deeply describe what we're looking at so that the assistant doesn't even hallucinate on its own information. So if I look here into the Tonga 2021 census data itself, it's going to have very common phrasing and language across each field title. And we'll see how my Wi-Fi access does here. I'll do a quick refresh. And so making sure that I'm using plain language in each of these fields, like females currently attending education, population 3 years plus, instead of this crazy field name that I know a lot of us have. Then make sure that that assistant can actually interact directly with that data. Then we get to the confusing part of, okay, but I don't want to code and I don't want to bring in an AI and I don't know what to do. Well, the great thing is that what we're looking at here is actually no code. I've added that data to a map. I've gone through these steps, interacted directly with my data, generated these embeddings, which basically is just a language for the AI to understand, and then told it, here are the questions that I want you to be able to add, and published it. It took me about 10 minutes to actually do once I had my data clean. So then, after it's thought for a little bit of time, we can look and see, okay, what percentage of households in Tonga have internet access and which type of connection is most common. This has then gone into my data set, asked the question, and returned to me a graph. I didn't ask it anything spatial, so it hasn't done anything with the map, although it could have. But it's just telling me now that 33.8% of households in Tonga have internet access, and the most common type of internet connection is mobile cellular, which is used by 6,346 households. Taking your data, instantly giving you insights, and allowing you to kind of view it with a helpful lens. Again, that's AI, but of course, we still need to be able to ask questions and perform analysis ourselves. What I want to show you is just kind of a very brief application that dives into doing analysis with your data. What I'm looking at here is a map layer of land use in Grenada. This is a data set from the Living Atlas, like Mackenzie was explaining. And I have a number of different Living Atlas layers here: soil types across Grenada, elevation, and distance to rivers. And I want to perform a really brief analysis that shows me where areas are that have landslide risk according to all of these factors. Higher elevation, soil types more prone to landslide, land use that is maybe unvegetated or has been recently kind of deforested, and then distance to rivers to involve the water component. And so here, I've then performed that quick analysis, again, using no code in ArcGIS. And here I then have a landslide risk map, which is showing me these areas of higher risk. That's valuable, but not that valuable for action. So I want to be able to ask a question. I can bring in Grenada building footprints that I've identified using imagery. And here we can see all of those different building locations across Grenada. But I want to be able to quickly identify where those buildings are at risk of landslide. So using just a simple symbology change, I can apply the symbology of my landslide risk directly to my buildings and then focus it for only areas where the landslide risk is high or extremely high. So here I can then zoom into an area and view any buildings that are particularly located in areas that have been considered high or very high landslide risk. This helps us immediately identify and immediately perform action based on the data sets that you already have, combined with Living Atlas data sets to be able to interrogate your data further. Before I finish, I just want to highlight one more kind of way of doing this type of analysis. What we're looking at here is, of course, global data. And this is that constant question, is being able to bring in global data. How is it going to help us with local data? And how do we use them all together? What we're looking at here is a variety of different global ocean factors that all factor into being able to predict higher risk over time. And so here we can see different things like primary production, sea ice concentration, dissolved oxygen, all of these being data sets, again, that are available in the Living Atlas. But again, I want to be able to interrogate that data and ask questions. So using something called a suitability modeler, I can take a few of these pieces, design a model, choose what weights I want, and in just a few clicks, be able to run an analysis that's going to tell me where the potential risk might be for these particular factors that I've given it. It's all about taking the data that you have, taking the data that exists globally, using these data hubs to combine that data, and then being able to start asking those additional questions. So I just wanted to show that really briefly. I will note that I did my low and high, so my red and greens are actually swapped here, but that's kind of it for us to demo. We'd love to be able to answer any questions once the question time comes again. But other than that, back to you, Greg.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you both. Thanks, Valerie. Thanks, Mackenzie. I have, as you can imagine, I have seen a lot of this work before, but when it's all stitched together like this and we think about the potential here and the opportunity of where we're going and where data and technology can take us, I get really excited. It's just sort of really is the foundation of why we do what we do. It's, really it is about data as being this asset that can be turned into impact and outcome. So thank you both so much. Now, with that, given this presentation and the live content that you've just seen, one of the things we wanted to do now in the small amount of time remaining was to actually go to a few of our customers, if I can call it that, who's the user at the end of the day. So we've got a few minutes here just to get some brief statements from some of our users. And I'm going to start with two of those being short recordings. And the reason they're recordings is that they're coming from Fiji, a great friend of ours and supporter, Maisie Ann Hicks, who is head of geospatial information management in the Ministry of Lands in Fiji. And you see, we've talked a lot about Fiji today. So she's going to provide a short video that we're going to show in just a moment. But also immediately after Maisian, we're going to have a short video from moving from a national organization to a regional, to the Pacific Community, or SPC. And this is Andiswa Milsa, who is the program manager for Digital Earth Pacific in the SPC. So perspectives from a national level to a regional level. And following that, I'll introduce two more speakers to you that will be with us online today. So if we can just now run those two videos, Mariana, and just hear what Maisian and Andiswa have got to say on what their expectations are, their perspectives of what the SIDS Global Data Hub should do to assist them. Thank you.
Isambula Vinaka, and warm Pacific greetings to everyone joining us today. Thank you for the kind invitation to share with you Fiji's perspective on the SIDS Global Data Hub. We welcome the establishment of the SIDS Global Data Hub as a transformative platform for small island developing states. For countries like ours, data is not just statistics. It is the foundation of resilience, sustainable development, and informed leadership. We see the Global Data Hub as a platform that will significantly enhance data availability, accessibility, and visualization. Many of our datasets are dispersed across ministries, agencies, and development partners. A centralized and interoperable platform will allow decision makers, researchers, and communities to access timely and reliable data in one place. And through modern dashboards, geospatial mapping, and visualization tools, complex information on climate, disasters, oceans, land, and socio-economic indicators can be easily understood and used. The hub will help close existing gaps as well. As a small island developing state, Fiji faces challenges in maintaining continuous high-quality datasets, particularly in areas such as climate change impacts, ocean health, biodiversity, and disaster risk. The hub can promote harmonized standards, shared methodologies, and regional collaboration. And by leveraging partnerships and integrating national, regional, and global data sources, we can fill these gaps and improve comparability across SIDS. And so Fiji also sees that the hub will strengthen national data collection and analysis capacity. Beyond being a repository, it must be a capacity building mechanism. And Fiji sees value in technical training, digital tools, and knowledge exchange that support our national statistical systems, geospatial agencies, and sector ministries. Strengthening institutional capacity ensures that data is not only collected, but properly analyzed and translated into actionable insights. Finally, the SIDS Global Data Hub will support evidence-based decision-making across the development priorities, whether it's addressing climate resilience, disaster risk reduction, sustainable land management, blue economy development, or social protection. Reliable data enables us to prioritize investments, monitor progress, and report effectively on global commitments such as the SDGs and the ABAS. And so for Fiji, the SIDS Global Data Hub represents partnership, innovation, and solidarity. It is an opportunity to amplify the voice of SIDS through credible data and shared knowledge. And thank you once again for the opportunity to share a few words at this webinar.
Thank you. And thank you to Mazian for that contribution. Whilst she's very I guess factual in her contribution, the work that she's been doing over a number of years now, and many of our national geospatial and statistical organizations are doing, is really working how we can work together better, and how we can break down these silos and break down data fragmentation. And one of the advantages that we have with small island states is that they are small. And it often means that, unlike big cities around the world, reaching across the aisle to other agencies can sometimes be as simple as walking across the corridor or walking across the street, such as the dimension of these small islands. So this has been really a great effort from Mazian. So thank you. Now to the regional perspective from the Pacific community, so the community SPC that supports all small islands states in the Pacific region. Now, Andiswa's statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg, and fellow panelists. Warm Pacific greetings to you all. We appreciate the opportunity for SPC to contribute to this webinar. While the time difference makes joining live challenging, it is a pleasure to share our reflections. From SPC's perspective, LAND is a regional organization mandated to provide scientific and technical support to 22 Pacific Island countries and territories. The SIDS Global Data Hub must not be built as a parallel structure. It must function as a leveraged ecosystem, drawing strength from existing national and regional systems. Enhancing data availability does not begin with new data. It begins with better integration. Across the Pacific, regional institutions already generate and steward critical data sets in climate, fisheries, geospatial information, health, and statistics, found in regional systems such as the Pacific Data Hub, Oceans Portal, Digital Earth Pacific, to name but a few. The Global Data Hub should connect to these through interoperable services rather than duplicate them. At the same time, global data sets must be contextualized for national scale usability. Many global layers are too coarse for small island realities. What works at continental scale does not always serve a 700 square kilometer island state. Accessibility must therefore mean fit for purpose, supported by intuitive dashboards, thematic map portfolios, and visual tools aligned to national development priorities and designed for policy users, not only technical specialists. When it comes to closing data gaps, importing global proxies is not enough. We need collaborative mechanisms that bring together national data producers, regional technical institutions, and global partners providing technology and financing. Data collection efforts should be co-designed, leveraging national expertise and regional support. Sustainability means building systems that SIDS can maintain themselves, supported by their regional institutions, not externally dependent solutions. Strengthening capacity must go beyond workshops. It requires embedding analytical workflows within national and regional institutions, strengthening governance for data stewardship, and aligning country data hubs with existing national platforms and regional architectures. We have learned that if capacity is not institutionalized, it is temporary and easily lost. Finally, to truly support implementation of the Antigua and Barbuda Agenda, the hub must engage more than the geospatial and statistical communities. National planners must be at the center as well. They are the custodians of national development plans and the bridge to international obligations, from SDGs to climate and financing frameworks. When planners help shape the use cases and thematic portfolios envisaged, the hub becomes not just a repository of data, but a decision support system. In summary, the SIDS Global Data Hub should operate as a connected regional national ecosystem, leveraging existing institutions, ensuring national scale usability, closing data gaps, collaboratively and empowering SIDS to lead and sustain their own data systems. The Pacific community stands ready to collaborate towards a Pacific Fit SIDS Global Data Hub. Malo Obito, Vinaka Vakalevo, thank you very much.
Thank you, Andiswa. And importantly, understanding the role of the regional institutions, such as organizations like the Pacific Community and OECS, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. It's important for the work that we do going forwards that we do this in partnership. And by way of example, we actually do have a formal partnership with SPC to work on the Global Data Hub. And we're also looking at doing that same process currently with OECS, who we'll hear from in just a moment. So with that, I would now like to introduce some great colleagues from UNOHRLLS. Originally, it was to be Ms. Tishka Hope Francis, who is the head of the SIDS sub-program in OHRLLS, but I knew she did have a deadline. She had another commitment 10 minutes ago. So now we're going to instead have Rebecca Newell, and I think Elaine is also going to contribute as well, but they are going to give a short presentation on the perspectives on the role of the SIDS Global Data Hub. So Rebecca, across to you, and if Elaine is there and wants to contribute as well, to you both. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Greg, and thank you for the really great, very, very interesting presentation so far. Yes, so Elena and I will be sharing the presentation on behalf of Tishka from the SIDS unit of OHRLLS. So thank you, colleagues, for this detailed presentation of the SIDS Data Hub. And yeah, as I said, happy to present on behalf of Tishka. Our responses will be based around the ABAS, the 10-year program of action for SIDS, which you, Greg, and Sergio both highlighted in the beginning of the webinar, as well as the monitoring and evaluation framework of the ABAS. We believe the SIDS Global Data Hub is a critical mechanism to support SIDS in reporting against the monitoring and evaluation framework of the ABAS. So for a bit of background on the M&E framework, I'll call it. The framework was endorsed by the General Assembly in November 2025. It was developed through an interagency task force of more than 30 relevant UN entities in close consultation with the Alliance of Small Island States. Reporting against the framework will begin in 2026, so this year, including annual reporting through the Secretary General's report, complemented by comprehensive biannual, so every 2 years, regional reviews from the regional commissions. And SIDS will be encouraged to report regularly, with flexibility to align reporting with national processes, such as the voluntary national reviews, the VNRs. So a key requirement of the framework was alignment with existing reporting processes, especially the Sustainable Development Goals, and kind of giving some numbers to reflect this alignment. 35 of the 59 targets in the M&E framework are aligned with the SDGs, and 56 of the 83 indicators are drawn directly from the SDG indicators. So this alignment helps minimize duplication and enables SIDS to build on their existing reporting mechanisms. And maybe just to add, in addition to the SDGs, there's also alignment with other international reporting frameworks, such as the Sendai framework and similar. So really building on what's there. So despite this alignment, SIDS will require substantial report to operationalize the M&E framework. This includes familiarizing ministries and agencies with the indicators, coordinating data collection across stakeholders, and assembling data for national and global reporting. And this is where we see the Global Data Hub as an important support. To support SIDS in reporting against the ABAS, OHRLLS, together with DESA, are conducting regional capacity building workshops as mandated in the ABAS. OHRLLS recently concluded such a workshop in Addis Ababa, supporting SIDS in the Atlantic, Indian Ocean, and South China Sea region. And here we got some really good feedback from participants, highlighting several priority needs that we think could be relevant for this webinar and for the Global Data Hub going forward. So I'll hand over to Eleanor to present some of the takeaways that we got from the SIDS. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm happy to give a very brief overview of these. So firstly, there was a clear need to modernize national statistical and data systems. Many countries continue to rely on fragmented manual workflows, transitioning to standardized, interoperable, and digital data systems, whilst enhancing capacity to utilize tools such as GIS will significantly strengthen data collection, analysis, and reporting capacity. The Global Data Hub can play a really valuable role in supporting access to modern platforms and analytical tools. Secondly, targeted capacity development for both NSOs and policymakers is essential to strengthen monitoring and evaluation skills, to improve data literacy, and to build technical capacity, including in emerging technologies such as AI and geospatial analysis. And these investments are particularly critical to build sustainable long-term institutional capacity. And third, strengthening whole-of-government coordination is essential. This includes establishing clear national coordination mechanisms, defining roles and responsibilities, designating focal points, and securing high-level political support to ensure sustained and effective reporting and strengthened use of data for decision-making. We believe the Global Data Hub is already very well aligned with these priorities and can further amplify its impact through close collaboration with OHRLS, DESA, the regional commissions, resident coordinator offices, and other partners supporting ABAS reporting. In this context, the ABAS toolkit, currently under development by OHRLS, will also provide practical guidance to support SIDS in mainstreaming the ABAS at the national level and reporting against the M&E framework. To conclude, the Global Data Hub represents a critical pillar of support for ABAS implementation, and we very much look forward to continued collaboration to strengthen data systems, enhance reporting capacity, and support sustainable development in SIDS. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you, Rebecca and Elena, for your valuable contribution and obviously too all of the work that you're supporting within and across the UN system. And as we mentioned in our opening comments, when we talk about multi-stakeholders and partners, it's absolutely critical that not only with member states, the UN system, particularly when we think about the reporting mechanisms up to a global level, are going to be absolutely vital. Thank you both, and thank you for that continued support over the last year or two. Now, finally, but not least, I'd like to introduce Dr. Valerie Grant. Valerie's actually wearing two hats, and both hats are in relation to the work we do in the Data Alliance. She is the Caribbean Market Specialist for Climate and Nature in Fugro. Fugro is a data technology company that is also a partner to the SDG Data Alliance, but she's also Strategic and Geospatial Advisor to the Secretary General of OECS as well. So over to you, Valerie, for your perspectives in a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for the invite and thanks for a good webinar. So for me, wearing both hats, the SIDS Global Data Hub is more than a repository. And so we feel that it must become an enabling architecture for resilience, for sovereignty, and smarter development across SIDS. And of course, leveraging existing resources in the different areas, such as the Caribbean. And so for SIDS, data often exists, but is fragmented, locked in PDFs, inaccessible across agencies, or scattered across multiple project-based portals. And so this weakens coordinated decision-making. The hub must therefore prioritize interoperability, standardized metadata, and seamless access that allows ministries, regional bodies, and partners to visualize information through intuitive dashboard and interactive maps and other fit-for-purpose solutions. But accessibility goes beyond simply logging into a platform. Access means removing barriers. It means allowing decision makers to really interact with spatial data in natural language. And so to ask questions like which coastal communities face the highest combined flood and poverty risk. And so it was really good to see our colleagues at Esri demonstrating some of those capabilities and to receive those clear visual evidence-based answers. And so when leaders can communicate with data conversationally, it shifts data from static information to dynamic intelligence. And so visualization is no longer cosmetic. It is how leaders understand the risk. And if data cannot be clearly seen, explored easily, and queried intuitively, it cannot shape policy. And so the hub should allow for that. Additionally, we find that many SIDS still face critical gaps in things like coastal bathymetry, high resolution land elevation, marine ecosystems mapping, infrastructure exposure, and socioeconomic vulnerability layers. Excuse me. And so critically, data at that land-water interface, that white ribbon problem, this is a zone where a lot of SIDS live, build, and invest. And so a lot is missing from there. And so the hub should not only catalog what exists, but actively signal where gaps remain. And so by making data absence visible, it can create a coordinated pathway for investment, to align donor financing for private sector geodata providers, and for national priorities to systematically close these gaps. And so strategic harmonization and data acquisition in coastal and ocean spaces is really not optional for SIDS. It is foundational for climate adaptation, for blue economy development, and for infrastructure resilience and disaster risk reduction. We know that technology alone cannot transform the outcomes. And so capacity must sit at the center. And so the hub should therefore embed training frameworks, share technical resources, and regional communities of practice, strengthening national units, environmental agencies, statistical offices, planning authorities, while leveraging regional mechanisms such as the OECS, CARICOM, SEDIMA to scale that expertise. And so we must move from dependency models to empower national data ecosystems so we are better able to design and co-design solutions. And finally, SIDS are navigating multiple issues: climate resilient, debt sustainability. We know all of them. The hub must integrate environmental, economic, and social data into decision-ready tools, linking coastal data with infrastructure assets and socioeconomic exposure, therefore transforms abstract climate risk into actionable investment planning. The SIDS Global Data Hub should have functions such as being a trusted source of harmonized, high-quality data, a coordinated platform of closing strategic gaps, and a capacity accelerator for institutions in the different regions, and ultimately a decision support engine that turns data into development outcomes. Because when it comes to SIDS, data is not simple information. We believe it's leverage. And so if designed well, the SIDS Global Data Hub can become a powerful instrument for resilience, sovereignty, and sustainable growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you so much. And from your experiences, I know you deal with this every day, as recently as the events that you've had in Jamaica and how data has become so critical to that. So thank you so much, and thank you to all of our colleagues for your really valuable presentations and context that's really followed up from the amazing presentation from Valerie and Mackenzie. With that, we're just going to now, I think it's still, I know we're over time. I apologize for that, but there have been some wonderful questions that have been asked, requested. Mackenzie, I know, has replied to a number of them, but I just thought I'd very quickly pick up on just a few of those. One of them is coming from a good friend of mine, from Andre in UNECA in Addis Ababa, was asking the questions around the sustainability of the Global Data Hub, and by extension, the SIDS Center of Excellence. And I think what's really important here is that a lot of leverage is taking place with with NGOs, with the philanthropic and the donor community, along with countries as well. So it really is multi-dimensional, multi-partnership approach. But Andrina, I don't know if you had any more comments on that in terms of the sustainability, but there is actually a model in place for that if you wanted to expand on that. But otherwise, we could speak with Andre separately. Over to you if you want to respond. Okay, we'll leave that. We won't do that. But we do have a sustainability model in there, and it's going to be. It can't all be governments. It's going to be a process with institutions. But the importance of the sustainability is relevance and having impact, and so that's going to be absolutely critical to that. Andre also asked, are there prerequisites for countries to participate in the SIDS Centre of Excellence? We've actually had that question a couple of times. Just sort of answering the SIDS COE and by extension the Global Data Hub and the Innovation Technology Mechanism, etc., for SIDS and all SIDS. So all of the SIDS have the ability to contribute. And a lot of that is how we support them in doing it. It's going to be variable. Some will be able to come to the table quicker than others because there are capacity and capability challenges. But one of the efforts that we've been doing is we've realized now over many, many years is that, and it's come up several times, including by Valerie just then, is that you can't just provide or throw data as a solution. It's more than that. It's about an integrated approach. It's about ensuring we don't have fragmentation. And it's not only of data, it's of institutions, of technology, of different capabilities, and ensuring that we have that human interoperability along with the data interoperability. So that's going to be absolutely important. Andre also mentioned the United Nations Integrated Geospatial Information Framework, the work that we do in the Data Alliance and also for the SIDS process and the Global Data Hub is founded on the UN IGIF. And so those principles and processes are very much embedded in the work that we're going to do. And we know that countries don't have all of that capacity. And this is why, as much as possible, having a center, actually having a center, having a lighthouse for small island states is going to be incredibly valuable in itself as a representation of what needs to be done into the future. Another question was, to what extent does the Data Alliance guide the types of problems, research questions, etc., through international data? So in other words, how are we setting up for problem solving and how does that fit with countries? One of the things we did do right at the start was take all the different, I guess, for example, the 10 priority areas of action that are contained in the ABAS, one of those being access to data, and another one being around digital transformation. But we've taken all of those areas around oceans and climate and well-being and geographic remoteness, and we've built those 9 thematic areas as a starting point, not a finishing point, but a starting point. And different countries will have different focuses on what those aspects look like, not in a dissimilar way to how different countries have a different focus with each of the Sustainable Development Goals. And as Rebecca and Elena mentioned, is the monitoring and evaluation framework, and those indicators that fit with that will also have different priorities for countries as well. So what we're doing is providing that framework and that guidance, and then engaging with the small island countries to how they best move some of that forward. What are those priorities? What's the low-hanging fruit? What's those that keep decision makers awake at night? And to extend on that, we have been very, very fortunate when we do have engagements in countries, in small island states. I've been to 7 or 8 in the last 2 years alone, and we have been able to engage right up to the level of Prime Minister. And so that has a big impact in terms of sharing the awareness and the communication as well. What else did I have here that I may have missed? I know Mackenzie's answered pretty much everything else. Uh, let me just check. I do have some other comments with contributions and particularly countries wanting to contribute as well. So I'll leave it at that because I know we're well over. I'm now going to step back and I'm going to invite President of Public Foundation, Stephen Keppel, to summarize and provide some closing reflections. And I will leave it at that. Stephen, over to you, and thank you everyone for your support today.
Thank you, Greg. Yes, and thank you to everyone, attendees, participants who joined us today from across the globe. Yeah, I think I'll start by saying what we've witnessed in these past 90 plus minutes, I think is something pretty remarkable, right? It's not just a demonstration of technology, but a demonstration of what is possible when the right people with the right purpose come together around a shared vision. What you saw today has, sure, some of the details have been put together in the last few weeks, but this is really years in the works. We came together today to talk about data, but really we talked about something much more fundamental, which is the right of every nation, no matter its size, to have the tools, the information, and the capacity to shape its own future. That is what the Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for SIDS is about. That is what the SIDS Center of Excellence and the SIDS Global Data Hub are beginning to make real. So I want to take a moment to recognize some of the individuals who made this work possible. Ambassador Aubrey Webson from Antigua and Barbuda, and Ambassador Ilana Said from Palau, who's representing AOSIS, could not join us today, but they've been key architects of the Center of Excellence, so I wanted to mention them. Andrina, thank you for bringing the SIDS Center of Excellence to life for our audience today. I think your work in helping to build this platform and communicate what it is and where it's going as we come into something operational, and it's meaningful in every evident, and it's evident in each detail that you shared. To Valerie and Mackenzie from the Esri team, thank you. You showed us not just what the tools look like, but what they can do. The live demonstrations today were extraordinary. They gave us a window into a future that is already arriving, right? These are things that already exist. We're building on them each day, and we have the opportunity with the right partners and resources to expand throughout SIDS and around the world. And finally, to Mazian, Adiswa, the team from UNOHRLS, and Valerie, thank you for grounding this conversation in the lived realities of the communities and countries that this work is designed to serve. Your perspectives were essential and helpful to us to understand the needs, but also the work that is happening to make a difference. At Public, we see data and technology as instruments of equity. Small island developing states face challenges that are disproportionate to their size. We all know this, from climate vulnerability, but also to debt burdens, to the persistent gaps in data infrastructure that developing nations depend on. The work we saw today, including the country data hubs, the map portfolios, the dashboards, the analytics, this is that infrastructure. So what began as a concept in the run-up to SIDS-4 in Antigua and Barbuda in May 2024 is now a living, functioning platform. But this is only the beginning, what we saw today, right? The 10 SIDS hubs are the first cohort, not the final one. The ambition of this initiative and the center is to extend these capabilities across all small island developing states, across the Caribbean, the Pacific, and the AIS region, so that no island is left without the data it needs to make decisions, attract investment, and demonstrate progress toward the goals that matter most to each nation. I also want to express gratitude to our partners, obviously the SIDS Center of Excellence, but also Esri, Fugro, the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, the Pacific Community, OECS, UN, OHRLS, all of those working quietly and persistently behind the scenes to turn this vision into a reality. This can't be done by one individual or one organization or one country alone. It can only be accomplished together. A recording of today's session will be made available online. We'll share it afterwards. We encourage you all to share it widely with your governments, your institutions, your networks. The more people who understand what is being built, the stronger this initiative becomes and the further this impact will reach. On behalf of Public Foundation, thank you for your time, your attention, and your commitment to a more equitable and data-informed world. Thank you.